Well, I don't know. We go find out today. So, Lou, how you going, brother?
I'm good.
You good? It's good to have you here, but I want to tell you, this has been long in the making. And when I first start talking to people, you're one of the first people I say, I had to talk to that man, boy.
Why, boy?
Full disclosure radio, boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to do the podcast before, just talking about what happened in the country over the last week. You know, wherever the current affairs was, I kind of started to talk about that. But my goal was always to tie it back to Calypso. Calypso is my love. That's where I feel most comfortable. And I find that a lot of the issues that we see now, we see these things many, many times before in the past.
It's cycles.
But the thing is, it's our brand new people born every day, and it's easy for us to take for granted that them know what we know, and their experience is ours. So I was glad when I see somebody else in the space talking about the current affairs and that kind of thing. What was the genesis of it for you, boy?
And this is full disclosure around the pandemic, right?
Right, yeah. You were talking more of the issues around the pandemic, the political side. It seemed as though there was no topic that he wasn't willing to talk about.
Yeah. So full disclosure, as the name alludes to, it was my attempt to show a community that I was growing in real time. It was never to come off as a leader in thought or a guru of any sort. The pandemic allowed me to slow down. And in slowing down, because remember, Feel the Love had just take Freetown Collective to a new place in the culture. We had about 17 bookings outside of the country already lined up.
From Feel the Love?
From Feel the Love. And for the pandemic to hit, and for the entire company to pivot and say, well, how are we going to survive this? I had a lot more time to sit and think and slow down. And a lot of personal things in my life needed addressing. And as I began to address them in my own self, other things started coming out about the creative community.
Right.
A lot of whistleblowing started happening. And I picked up a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. Well, it was suggested to me by a friend, right? She even bought the book for me. And in reading that book, I realized just how much I was ignoring about my own existence. I said, okay, I'm feeling like I stumbled on a gold mine in my own self. And I would like to try to have a community around self-discovery. So on full disclosure, that name suggested that no topic was off the table for addressing. And I would attempt to be my most brutally honest so that whoever looks at this could hold me to those words. I needed the accountability.
I got you.
So I wanted people to hear me say those things. See me make those discoveries and force me to be a better person by holding me to those things.
Yeah, you put it on record.
I put it on record.
I appreciate that. It was a conversation. I think if I remember right, I used to see it on a Sunday, like on YouTube live.
It used to be on a Sunday.
A nice little community, you know, because I like the idea that you were doing it live as opposed to I recording and putting it out every Tuesday, but I might record Friday.
Yeah.
But the live gives you a different opportunity to
You can't hide.
No.
You can't hide it.
The comments coming at you fast and furious.
Yeah.
And you seem to enjoy it too. You like the banter with the audience.
Because I'm a perpetual student. I don't ever see any kind of engagement or discourse as a challenge. I am here to learn. From the most learned to the most naive. I'm here to learn. There isn't any area, any topic that I think that I'm an expert on that, precludes me from learning from somebody. So if you want to see me at my most excited, teach me something.
Teach. It seems to be real excited when you're doing the teaching too. Teaching is a learning in itself.
Yeah, and I'm excited because it's a two-way street. Because by attempting to impart information, I am also in the moment realizing that I didn't realize some things. So there's some contemporaneous learning for me when I teaching.
Got you. So that would have been advanced to today in our series I enjoying a lot with For the Record.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I was telling you before you start, it's great work that you're doing because I almost since you started, every time I prepping to interview somebody, something you said on that episode make me add a question, change a question. It's been real useful.
Thanks.
Like I remember you reading something about Kenny Phillips here last week, and you read something and you say Kenny Phillips.
Yeah.
And I was like, I say, my first thought was, Lou make a mistake here. Because the age of the song you're talking about and my age for Kenny Phillips, I say something here right.
And I said, the Kenny Phillips.
Yeah.
Just so that everybody was clear. Yeah, that Kenny Phillips.
Yeah.
You only looking young.
I know.
Kenny only looking young. The cat is out the bag now.
Yeah. People
Stop
know.
dying here. No, you're clean shape, man. You're bald. Sorry. Scratch that.
That was you keeping him looking young too. It'd be great out in trouble. You know?
Tricks.
Yeah. But that part about just connecting the music, and it's something you used to do a lot in Full Disclosure Radio. Maybe that's why I latch on to it, because you would be talking about that topic, like what happened in the pandemic and youths and so on, and then you just randomly talk about a melody, Calypso, and I think, but this man no Calypso. Yeah. So you dive into it fully now.
Yeah. I was just talking to David Ware's photographer, and he was responsible for like Freetown's first professional photo session for an article done by Laura Doridge. And in that photo, Muhammad and I are sitting on crates of records, and he was holding up a shadow record, and I can't remember which record I was holding up. But those are the same records that I have today. So I've always had these records in my possession, and I've always had Calypso songs and soca songs that really important to me, but the dive into it would have come after Feel Love. So Feel Love is a part of an album, an EP called Yago. And in executive producing Yago, I had to go into Calypso. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Jaron Remy, DJ Rockers, was the first person to really start telling me, examine all the music we make in Trinidad and Tobago. All of it is Calypso. Like all of it. And I start examining all, even the reggae that we make, Corie Kill Mad Cow Disease. But how you singing that? So just take away all that whole reggae revival, take away all the reggae instrumentation, and imagine Calypso behind it. Of course. Calypso. I spoke to Beaver. I said, Beaver, ganja farmer, talk to me about that. Why is that a hit? Beaver said, flat. Is that Calypso?
It's Machel.
That sent me back into the crates.
Gotcha.
If all of these songs that are hits, I mean, Sasha, don't you know your love? Like, that's the most genre-less song this country has ever. Because it's a ballad, but there's pan in it. But the lingua songs like reggae. But you can't help the melodic structure of it being that of Calypso. So that sent me back into the crates to really study just how much influence Calypso has on the soil in Trinidad and Tobago, that we can't escape it.
Yeah. And I heard you say somewhere that the culture is not just a festival or religion or whatever it is. The culture is really how you and me interact with each other.
That's right.
So I always felt that anytime somebody from Tobago do something, it's done Kaiso already.
Exactly.
Like we talk in the barbershop like Kaiso. We talking now is Kaiso.
Exactly.
The peacock is a laugh. It gets serious. It gets heavy.
Yeah.
Because you lie on any street corner, which all we do. It go from politics to woman to how man, this thing, the pandemic, we could talk about that way a man grew up. So sometimes you know a man everything about somebody without asking him a question about himself, just through Kaiso and Calypso.
Yes.
You know, that's why I like what Bunji is saying, when he said he love how he just walk and how he just talk and how he just cook and how he just look. To me, all of it is Calypso. So I feel encouraged when I hear you talking about that. The last episode I listened to, you were talking about that. You were starting to get into some depth in West Calypso. But I want to talk about the records, because your origin in music started from vinyls too with your father, yeah?
Yes. I grew up in Pembroke, Tobago. And my parents, I have one older sibling, I have an older brother. And my parents decided that for both of us, they wanted us to read. So they discarded the television that they had.
So no TV?
As in, not give it away. They throw it away. they don't want no TV in this house. So we literally grew up with just books the song that you see and vinyls. Music.
Serious?
Yeah.
So you had to go to the vinyls either for my
Yeah, I mean, how much book we could read? Corie, how much book we could read?
If left up to your parents, it go
Yeah. But also, I also grew up very strict Seventh-day Adventist.
Right.
And to me, the music was always a pathway to a wider world of imagination that wasn't just religion, schoolwork, or family home. There was a way that listening to these records ignited my imagination to see a world that I didn't have a television to see, that I didn't have access to any videos, music videos. No, those things started in my brain.
You had to tell them YouTube wasn't around when you were small.
YouTube
right?
was not around.
Yeah, none of that.
Yeah, flat screen TVs wasn't
Yes,
even
big
around, Corie. Yeah, it used to take 2 men to live up a 20
Yeah,
inch.
your father had to get a friend when he wanted to move out the TV.
That's right. Yeah, so music started to play a very important role in my life because of the access to the vinyls and the cassettes that my father had. And also my brother and I had a Saturday ritual. We used to come from church, right? There's morning church and evening church. So in between that period where we taking lunch and resting a little bit, we used to be vexed to go back to evening church because evening church starting back at 4 p.m. But at around 3 p.m., Rick D's and the weekly top 40 used to start.
You could hear some music.
And if nobody knows what that is, Rick D's and the weekly top 40 is the longest running music show on radio, where it recaps the top 40 songs in the world.
Right.
And that used to be like our soap opera. We listening to see who get bumped down from song number 10.
One new song coming in.
One new song coming in. So yeah, it was just a portal for our imagination.
I understand. And that would be not genre specific. The records you're listening to or in the top 40, you just hear it.
all from gospel to soul. Maybe not a lot of Calypso then yet. Yeah, but all.
Yeah, I would assume that the early days of Freetown, you know, as you say, before you get into soca, it is very hard to see. I hear you call Born Into Darkness a pop album, but it's so hard to put a genre to it. It's like every song you hear is from something else. You know, it went from rock and roll, it had pop, it had love song, and feeling R&B. And again, you understand that I listening through the ears of all them songs Calypso to me is all Calypso.
All of them is Calypso, Corie. All. But we didn't know at the point in time.
Gotcha.
Right? And the reason why that, and do you know why that album was called Born in Darkness?
No.
Because we had no reference.
When is a reference?
We had no OGs.
I see.
We had nobody
in the business
to tell us. So Muhammad, myself, and Sheriff locked ourselves in a room and basically taught ourselves a lot.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm not saying that the space didn't have OGs. We just felt like we didn't have access to them.
I understand.
The same way Usher would have been Justin Bieber's OG. You know, and P. Diddy in a lot of hot water. But before that, he was a lot. Yeah, he was a lot of people's mentor.
Of course.
So we felt like we had these stories that we needed to tell.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the presence of an older record exec, producer, A&R to say, here's how you develop an album from song one to the end.
Understand. Yeah, I know Beaver at that time to tell you.
And Beaver was around, but Beaver's still active in his own personal life. And he's still doing production. He's still a active musician and intellectual. So, I mean, how we going to inconvenience Beaver like that? Our industry is not set up like that.
No.
Yeah.
You
so
don't get introduced to mentors. There's no system of matriculation. It's a little tricky.
Yeah. So looking back, now we can appreciate that Born in Darkness, songs like what Carl and Carol Jacobs was doing, songs like what Robin Imamsha was doing, like songs like what Ajala was doing. There were always these songs like what Mavis John was doing. There were always these Trinbagonian musicians who didn't make festive music, carnival music, And it sounded like it absorbed whatever the world influence would have been at the time.
Yeah.
When you strip that away, the songwriting is Calypso, the reference is Calypso, the way we express the emotion in the words is Calypso, the way we bend,
of course,
the melodies is Calypso. You can't escape it.
Yeah. You know who I was talking to Turner here about that. The way Turner is say words. It's so much Kaiso in everything he do.
Turner is a throwback, you know.
He's from another life for sure.
Turner and he has always been that way.
Well, it was funny to hear him say that. He said that the Calypsonian has a god to him. When I asked him about it, he said, but the Calypsonian is the man. Because even when he started some song, he say, oh lad, that's not from now.
Yeah.
You understand? That and
he talked about his life.
Yeah. He talked about his upbringing and, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
so growing up in the home, but also in East Port of Spain, that is the hotbed of the culture. You know? So for a youth like that, who could have been influenced by anything negative, for Calypso to be the spirit that he identified with, that shows that to me, Calypso is the most potent, primordial,
of course,
energy of Trinidad and
the
Tobago.
base of people.
Well, it's Kalinda,
Well, Kalinda, true. That's
it's Kalinda, but manifested as Calypso.
Yeah, and that's why it would affect and impact so much other genres all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, when I hear Molly come here to do show, and she had a link up with Gladys, you know, it shows you something about what we do, and it's special. And as a man who diving into the culture, too, plenty of our genre of music come out of orphanage. Plenty of it come out of homes.
Yes.
You know, when you think of it.
Yeah.
So you diving into records, listening to radio, trying to find yourself. What is it like when you start to find yourself in music? Because you're starting to play music, started from the church, yes?
Yeah. So my father always liked to tell a story. There was a time he traveled to the States and he asked me and my brother what we wanted.
Yeah.
And I think my father also had a large collection of Reader's Digest. Kids, you wouldn't know what that was, but that was like Instagram in book form.
Yeah, the magazine days, right?
And I had come across this real life-size fire truck with all the bells and whistles and things. And in my mind, I was saying, if I get this, I gotta be the man on my block because nobody got a toy like this. I said, Daddy, I want a fire truck like in the Reader's Digest. And my brother wanted a keyboard. My father said he went into a store and he saw the keyboard. And he said, I ain't buying no fire truck. Them boys could share this keyboard. And as my father would tell it, my brother probably felt like he owned that keyboard for 5 minutes. By the time that keyboard came, that was my real start to music, like touching a real instrument. That opened up an interest to start singing in church. Then that opened up for my parents to really observe that, you know, music is something special to me. And my father is a skilled joiner.
Okay.
And at one point in time, he was doing a lot of work on yachts, doing the woodworking on the inside of yachts. And he and his business partner had done some work for a really famous musician who had a yacht dry dock in Trinidad. And apparently he didn't have a lot of the cash available to pay them. And my father saw a bass guitar there and he said, I have a son into music. And the man said, well, this is my touring instrument, you know. But, well, you do such a good job. And my father brought that bass guitar for me. Let me say he brought that bass guitar the Monday. The Saturday I was playing in church.
Yeah.
Never touched a bass guitar before. But I had few days to realize notes. And I said, yeah, man, I could play. And bass guitar became my first real instrument that I played in church.
Serious? So you're playing with the keyboard, you're playing a little bass guitar too. No, that playing music in church is different to telling your parents you want to become a professional musician, you know.
Yeah, I know.
They accepted that?
I never tell them that.
Up to today.
I never tell them that. They know that. But I didn't.
I guess they would be seeing it.
I never tell them that. Really.
So how religious parents, you know, Trinidad is a place where most of us, you talk to a lot of musicians and you find that people find themselves in the music within the religion. I always wonder what it's like for parents when you start to play music that you know, secular music, as they would say. What daddy and them saying at that point?
My musical journey opened up for my father to be open about his upbringing. So then that let me know that he was a part of youth groups around the time of Black consciousness. And he used to be singing and performing with his partners and them in community centers.
Right.
Performing as a front, but really distributing Black power paraphernalia. Like, he was a radical using music.
I understand.
So now I know that, I'm not really a novelty in the family in that way. The most, I would say, reservations would have come from my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a very conservative woman, very spiritual, very religious, and she prays a lot. So her reservation, right, was always tied an idea that musicians just take drugs.
Oh, nice. I like that. I like that. So sweet.
Yeah. So her gripe is now with the music, you know. Is when the music is a gateway to cocaine.
It's amazing how they see it, boy.
Yeah, and listen, at that point, I found it to be illogical, illogical to the point of hilarious. This is me as a boy,
right?
But you don't test the wisdom of your parents.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
You see this?
Not that I've taken drugs,
but you're seeing it. You have a front row seat.
I didn't say
that,
that, Corie.
I go say it for you. You have a front row seat.
All I'm saying is I understand the wisdom of my mother now.
You know, it's funny. My grandmother told me the same thing. We had a business and we had an opportunity to move to Jamaica. And I was back and forth so often. I told my father one day, I said, boy, I had to go, I had to stay, you know. And when I moved, my grandmother nearly in tears. She said, boy, don't go and follow them drug people in Jamaica. I was like, where is coming from? But I like you, get a front row seat too.
Yeah.
But I like you. I might have partake, you know. I mean, who knows? You know?
Hey.
Who knows, you know? You never to know. I think my mother listening to this.
He saw it. He didn't touch it.
Yeah.
He didn't touch it.
Thanks.
Your prayers work.
Yeah, plenty prayers. Huh? That's the thing with West Indian children and their parents. You back up plenty prayers.
Yeah, now my mother could relax because she realized, you know, Freetown is a positive group and all of that. But in the earlys, my mother just used to call me randomly. I'm praying for you.
Yeah, sure.
How the band going? Yeah, how the next one? Muhammad is his name?
Yeah.
How he going? I'm praying for you, all right?
Yeah. But it's funny because you all both from deeply religious backgrounds, and that might have affected your choices in terms of what you do with music or what you choose not to do with music.
Of course. And the reason why, even at the point of meeting Muhammad, I already knew what my path using my gift had to be. Because in my mind was already the notion that if a gift is not used right, it will destroy you first. Before you wreak havoc on others with this gift, by the time someone starts destroying community with the gift, it's because they are already internally destroyed. So I always approach musicianship and just the notion, Corie, of being an artist is something that's very reverent for me. And sobering. Yeah, it's not something I take for granted or I treat recklessly at all.
I starting to understand your posts around this Vibes Cartel issue because I saw people talking about, well, everybody have an opinion about Vibes Cartel not coming to Trinidad. You know, man say again 90% of the money and never show up. But I saw you as an artist come out and say, one of the few artists I will say that has said something publicly about it to this point. Come out and say, for you, the spiritual connection with your fans almost is what is at the forefront for you. And you might have moved different. You didn't say what you had to do, but you say you might have take that into consideration if you come. That's where it comes from too in terms of...
Yeah, of course, because I understand that somebody could say, well, examine Vibes Cartel music. He's not person who stands on principles and morals in his music. He's really a high entertainer, you know. He offers entertainment as his service. If you go deeper than that, whether you are saying that the music is a vehicle for just enjoyment or your music is a vehicle for upliftment, you can't escape that music is spiritual. The act of performing, writing, creating out of nothingness an idea that can access people's emotions, that is a spiritual transaction.
Right.
And when you look at the ripple effect of that, because of songs that you might have written in your bedroom, under a mango tree, in a car, after a breakup, in the river, wherever you were at that point of origin of that idea, that can motivate somebody to buy a new outfit, take a loan from the bank to come and see you. So without trying to be too judgmental, because I'm very judgmental about ICU, right? Sure. And if you want your platform to handle that kind of stress, I could go there too. But the takeaway message was, for me, as artists, we have to be mindful of the full gamut that putting art out in the universe can do, and that transcends financial transactions. That's a spiritual transaction. The ability to get people to do things that they might not have done but for your art.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wonder how much artists would take that into consideration, you know, artists, especially at the top levels, you know, the people who could command $1.3 million for a show, you know, because in my mind, again, as a layman, if you give me 90% of my thing, the contract breached, so I'm within my rights to not come, right? But one of our core values as a company too is relationship over rights. You see, what me and you bill and I always feel if me and you referring to a contract, Lou, we done break down already.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
If you're married and you had to be talking about your married contract,
bro,
it's not going to work, right?
Bro, by the time we're talking legalese, it is because we have exhausted diplomacy. We have exhausted an ability to individually resolve conflict. And we're now looking for external legal systems to help us.
Of course.
But I'm glad you talked about that core value that your company abide by, because that's where I'm coming from. All right, where I'm coming from, Corie, is Trinidad and Tobago, right, and Jamaica has an ongoing Caribbean sibling rivalry that we refuse to talk about, right? And on both sides we're right, and on both sides we're wrong. But what this has opened up is a conversation for us to have about how Trinidad's energy economy has allowed the creative economy of the Caribbean to allow artists of the Caribbean, including Jamaican artists, to have their first proper shows and get proper pay for international appearances. I.e., let me look at which camera I could look at.
Look at all.
I.e., Trinidad and Tobago has bussed so many, and when I say bust, introduced in a major way so many Jamaican artists that is valuable cultural context for this.
Of course.
If you understand that the music consumer market of Trinidad has supported your industry for more than 4 decades, one instance of bad business is enough.
Yeah, it speaks volumes,
okay.
Right? I would say it speaks volumes. They say the highest pay men ever get, I hear Jamaican artists say that, the highest money they ever get in any other market outside of Jamaica is here.
Cocoa Tea will tell you that. Sizzler will tell you that. Vibes Cartel himself will tell you that. Beanie Man will tell you that. Bounty Killer will tell you that. Shabba will tell you that.
Well,
man like Yami Bolo, who was living in South, will tell you that.
Yeah, man, been here, right? Well, differences will make a big difference. He's going. He put up by this time he'd have put on a show, and he treated slightly differently because you know it's like both Mr. Shaq and Kurt Allen are here heavy hitters in the Calypso arena, and both of them said in their own way, "Hey, you see, between me and my fan, no judges can come between that, no promoter can come between that. The message first and the relationship with the audiences is first." So I appreciate you saying that, eh?
Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that. It's important to be said.
Yeah. And just for the record, there are times when Freetown has been asked to perform charitably, and we've had to say no. And it's not because we don't believe in using our music for community. Sometimes there are hard conflicts between charities. There are hard conflicts between other altruistic goals.
Of course.
So it's never, well, we ain't getting paid, that's why we ain't showing up. No, we have other commitments.
Right, yeah.
Right? That are not financially related, that would make this too onerous and too burdensome for us to keep the ship afloat.
I'm with you.
Right?
I was telling Muhammad,
but there is a
I
way.
saw you all was on a charity show too. So you get it done, right?
Yeah, we do get it done when we can. And there are times when we have been asked to examine, well, okay, do we, and this is between me and Muhammad, yeah, we manager want to pay the bills. But we know that this person can't pay. What we doing? And there are many times that we defer to, and it's not just pleasing the fans. It's understanding that music is a spirit. And the moment we define our relationship with music as exploitative, that is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and I guess you also conscious of it destroying you before everything else too.
Exactly.
Upbringing.
Exactly. So balance. And when let's look at it from a as an objective standpoint as possible.
Right.
Receiving 90% of your money. It's balance.
Yeah. That's a hell of a balance.
Bro,
balance
even if you show up and you perform for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and you tell the patrons, sorry to give all your wet beak,
Yeah.
but I still show up even though me and Guy have bad business.
Yeah.
But I wanted you all to see that I was still willing to show up.
Yeah, for
Right?
the fans. Yeah, it has happened before. I remember sometime Bounty Killer might have cussed on stage and they had to stop the show. And Elephant Man them came back. I believe it was Roy Mirage, and he come and he said, "You're going to do a free show." And they came back and they do a free show, and he said, "Man, things just go wrong." Well, you know that world is difficult. But so many things could be done differently. That issue still unfolding as we speak, waiting for word from the promoter and so on. It would never die off.
Yeah.
But the choices you make in music influenced heavily by that connection with that audience. And I want to go back to you first starting to perform, and it was spoken word. Where did that come from? Where did the poetry part? Is it in school, or where you get the influence
No.
from?
What kind of music you think I just listen to? Mostly.
Mostly you?
Yeah.
I would have said reggae, if I had to guess.
Wow, stereotype much.
And you can judge him from Luciano get up and sing, you know what I mean? But Kaiso and Soka?
Nah, let me, you know who make it happen is, let me give a infamous make it happen rap line. I is the only rap man, my dog and them just listen to Conscious.
I see.
It's a real rap man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Legit. So I wanted to rap. But when I look around, I say, okay, as he shines the hood's greatest, do anything. As he make it happen, do anything.
Right.
As he spot rushers doing the thing. Even Highway Records is doing the thing. I say, I don't think I could do that, but I don't have the production. Then I don't have no beats, nothing. And again, this is before YouTube.
Right.
I say, okay, well, all these verses I have, I will just poetrify them.
I got you.
I can just spoken wordify them. But it's really rap verses I was doing as spoken word.
I understand. And that circuit is where you just first met Muhammad. You also met there.
Yeah.
That mutual respect developed from there.
Yes.
Now I hear you say when you was booked to go England, Muhammad spoke about it before, but he didn't tell me you only had one tune and it was time to go over there.
Yeah, but I would say 2 tunes. Right? We had a song called Mama Africa. We performed that in a while though. Yeah, might perform that tonight. Mama Africa.
That's
and yeah. We performed Mama Africa and Love Transition. Those are the only 2 songs we had.
Right.
So it was 2 songs and, well, about, 6 poems between all of us who went.
Mm-hmm. What you're doing so special that you feel people reaching out to you to book you and that kind of thing at that point in time? What how people finding you without YouTube and without social media?
Well, the ground zero stage would have been We Speak, right? Which was an open mic started by Muhammad in UE.
Right.
And you could hear about an event, but showing up to the event is a different thing. Mm-hmm. The first time I showed up to UE Speak, I swear it was a fete. Mm-hmm. The way the excitement and the students were reacting to, and of course they had some poems that were like audience favorites, so that people knew the words to poems, Corie.
Yeah, I would not think.
Yeah, people knew lines and were shouting it back like if it's put your hand in the air.
Yeah, they come to see that.
It was the live performance atmosphere was very different at that point. Right. The idealism on campus was very different. The political motivations for students to make a better world was very different. Yeah. This is before we start seeing plenty nakedness on Instagram and things. We're distracted now. But we were still closer to the idealism of our parents and a kind of society that they dreamt of and felt like we could finish the good work to do. Mm-hmm. And so that in itself generated a buzz off campus.
I see.
So, yeah, being able to generate that kind of energy on campus affected off campus.
Right. Oh, it is. So that the exposure in name starting to get around.
Yeah.
And by that
all
time,
started from on campus.
Gotcha. Plenty movements, huh?
Yeah.
When you look at what the university should
all of
mean.
them, yeah.
Of course, that's
Macandal Dagger, all of them, yeah. Black Power started on campus too.
I was trying not to nerd out there, but I think the campus could be a space like that again. Boy, every now and again you see it rise up to be that.
Yes, but it can't be a fiction of the past. It can't be romanticized based on a time before technology.
I guess we have to be able to today.
Yeah, we have to be able to use technology as a tool for community.
With you.
Because that's all university really is. It's community. Because it's such radical thought. It's easy for me to show up if other people showing up. I don't want to be singled out. If police are to spray down people with water, I don't want it to be me alone. Yeah, so it's really community. How do we find an established community in a time that is dominated by technology?
Yeah, and you're right. It could be so different because I remember going in UE. And it might, you think that your ideas, coming out of the most rebellious phase in your life, right? You're finishing your teenage years, and you think that these things you have is so novel, and and when you meet other people, other people think this way too. You're not alone. Yeah, you find a tribe.
Yeah.
So you're finding that tribe. By that time, you and Muhammad are already Freetown Collective at that point. Labeling yourself. No, not yet. So when you all travel the first time, you're not. No, in UE you will. But by the time you're getting booked, not yet.
No, in UE we won't.
Right.
So Freetown Collective, the name Freetown was born in London.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yeah, so London created Freetown. And that's why to this day, we raise a lot of capital to go on tour in London. We've been blessed to break even and sometimes make some profit because London, when we went to do that show at the Tabernacle, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't know the effect of that show. Mm-hmm. But immediately after that, some residents of London came up to us and said that they would like to invite us for lunch. Right? Which would have been the following day. We found the place, we showed up. And Corie, it was an entire room of Caribbean professionals, like high-level professionals, like senior counsel lawyers, accountants, bankers who were present at that show. Remember, we now finishing university. We trying our thing.
Right, yeah.
And we are in a living room, lunch prepared, and we are around Caribbean people, Guyana, Barbados, because, once you're outside of the region, it's become brothers and sisters, right? Yeah, all of a sudden you understand what unity is.
It's true.
Yeah. So they were really instrumental in the forming of Freetown because they, in a very sobering way, put us to sit down, right? And we performed a few, well, the 2 songs,
Right.
and some of the poems,
Right.
and they said, "You all don't know what this means for us." They say all we hear from back home is soca music. And then when we go back home in person, the reality that we encounter does not mirror what we get from the music. The music will make us feel as though everything is all right.
Cool.
Yeah, we drinking rum as normal.
Course, yeah.
And you know, the Caribbean is just this real happy place. But when they go back to the Caribbean, they're realizing
Something different.
people have it hard. And they were able to get that kind of narrative from the poems and the music that we did. And they urged us, whatever plans you all have for your lives, just don't stop this.
I understand.
Because while what you're all doing might be important for Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean diaspora needed even more.
So that would have given you kind of the impetus. You see who's your audience.
That was it. That was it.
I got
You know, and so you have Muhammad trying to finish up his civil engineering, me trying to finish up law, and Keegan trying to finish up something else. And it was a bleak day. I remember this. All 3 of us just standing up in silence looking at the Thames. Cold. Figuring out life, an existential moment. And one of us would have broken the silence and say, we had to try this when we go home. Like, wherever the plans are, yeah, we can finish up school, but we have to try this.
Yeah.
And then Muhammad had a song called Call the City Freetown. And yeah, Keegan was the one who says, I think Muhammad suggested, well, I think we should go with the Freetown thing.
Yeah,
and Keegan said, yeah, but we had to call it Freetown Collective.
Why you come up with the collective?
Collective. You know, because Keegan Maharaj, a really powerful spoken word poet. He's a man real believe in community, you know, and there's a way that East Indians have a way of living community that isn't always the average experience for the African Trinidadian and Trinbagonian. So there is a description and a feeling of community that he had, that he kind of impressed upon us, that had to be part of the model moving forward. Like, have to be about people. So the collective is everybody. We would be the core of Freetown. But once you believe in Freetown, you're part of the collective.
It explains some of the performances and the tight spaces and some of the parts of the mission. That collective got it.
That is the DNA of our business model.
I'm with you.
It is a community model.
I'm with you. I heard you say at that point in time you decided Muhammad going to work on his voice for the next 6 months. You're going to work on guitar. So at that point, when you go on there, you're not playing the way you play now. You're not playing.
Hell no.
Serious no.
Bro, no.
Just stand up and sing. You was playing
No.
Because so far you tell me keyboard, then you say bass.
Yeah.
So how it become now you're going to spend time to perfect the guitar? You just needed it in the band then?
When we started making these songs and spoken word, Muhammad was a better guitarist than I was. I couldn't play guitar.
Serious?
I did not have a guitar. At that point, when still going to school, right? And my wife watching me. She know the career path that I'm on.
Yeah.
Where this music thing fitting in, my friend. You know, what's happening?
Yeah, once she married a lawyer.
And I had a child on the way.
Yeah, so serious matters.
Despite that, right? And I want to say that the women who are in artists' lives are so critical and so important to their success. And there are some women who desire for their contributions to be private because there is some emotional safety around people knowing what you just do too.
Of course.
That, or what I would say is, the first proper guitar that I had was purchased by my wife.
I see.
She didn't understand what was taking place, but she said, "That thing you're playing there, it's not sounding good. It's not sounding good. Don't know where we can find the money, but you'll get something better than that." And I think she would have said that after she came to a UE speak.
Yeah,
I think probably a week after that, I see a guitar in a box. I say, okay.
Yeah.
But there was a desire to get better after London. There was a desire to commit to it and do this in a way that required it to be done. So I used to study, right? No lie. Before London, my average study day was 17 hours.
Right. This is when you're doing law? Or
doing law. I used to study for 17 hours.
I mean, all your waking hours?
All my waking hours. And some sleeping hours too. Right? All the house used to have papers on the walls of cases. And I used to live and breathe that.
Right.
And now I have to divide my attention with that. And so 17 hours studying law. And then now while starting to play the guitar now, I would alternate. So Monday, I'll study. On Tuesday, I'll do some light revision and play guitar whole day. I'm not a formally trained musician. No. All that you hear from me is hard work. Nobody said, if you want to play guitar, you should start on nylon strings.
Yeah. So say start with steel.
Bro.
That explains a lot too.
You started on steel strings on a fretboard that looked like a harp. You know, Gypsy have an album called The Action Too High?
I mean, your fingers on both hands going through it.
Corie, there was blood coagulating under the nails of my left hand. The hand that holding the chords.
Yeah, of course.
Because I had to learn. I had to learn.
Yeah.
And I just tried. And at some point, YouTube became more and more in stream and beasting out on tutorials.
With you. So you didn't decide to drop out a law at the time?
No.
Both?
Yeah. We have to do both.
Why
Where would I live?
After she buy the guitar, she's supposed to know that is it for law school.
No. I had to finish.
So you finished your law degree?
Yeah.
Why law?
So in Tobago, I started off in journalism.
Really?
And that's why the podcast and thing has structured it. All right. I started off as a junior reporter and editor for Tobago News. So I actually worked for Tobago News. My editor at the point in time, Earlman Mohan, a man who changed my life too. He said you should go and pursue this. Like you could go to Costat.
Right.
And study this. He said, I will put you on to Keith Smith, editor at large. He had some weekend classes and thing. I'll put in a good word for you. You could pursue this. Like you're good. You could write.
Of course.
And so that's what I did. I came down to Trinidad from Tobago with my very radical idea of changing the world by being an investigative reporter. And I had... Yeah. Even worse. And I had Kerwin Pyle Williams, I calling out your name. He was one of my lecturers in Costat, and he was responsible for my ethics course. And in ethics and law.
I see.
And he said, you should look into law because you have a brain for ethics and legal reasoning, so you should pursue it. I didn't take that too seriously, but there was another teacher who was responsible for teaching us critical thinking.
Right.
I won't call his name. Based on assignments I used to submit, he always used to say, "Lou boy, they go kill you, boy." I don't think journalism is for you.
Yeah, too radical.
No. This is unsafe. Like this angle that you want to take news from, that's not the purpose of news. Right? You have to manage information. You just want to disrupt society. Yeah. Nah, that's not. Yeah. So he used to say jokingly at first, but then he really told me, nah, you will not get work if you don't understand what the fourth estate of media is supposed to do as a political entity.
Right.
Forget the corporate side. Like, you trying to adopt this as a way of being a journalist is not going to work.
I see.
But that is what my idealism was tied to. So then I say, if I can't do that, then
so because that was media, was journalism, and then
it was journalism and public relations.
I see. It story starting to come together a little bit, and I'm starting to see some of it, because just watching the way you would break down issues on Full Disclosure back in the day, of course, very, very structured. I don't know if people might know how much research would go into what you had to do. It seems like showing up and talking.
All of that is a result of being in media and then going to school to study it.
Right. And a certain level of determination too, because anybody who ever tried to play a guitar and then hear you play a guitar feel like you can't get... Yeah, listen, the first time I hear you play was in a show in Anchorage. It was a Habitat for Humanity. This is the Hunger Banquet or something like that.
Yeah.
And I hear all your men play. We playing after all. Me and my father, our band is sing old time Kaiso. So we playing after all your fellas. But in them days, I was telling Muhammad, you heard Freetown Collective, but you don't know what it is. I don't know what it's a collective.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just song like young people music and I old and I don't know what that is. And then you all came and play a few songs and things, and it was, you had the crowd in a grip. People know some of these songs, but even the ones that they know, it can't be ignored. But I remember hearing you play. Them time I didn't realize you're singing, huh? I hear you play Dread, and I trying to figure out what you doing. So I said, I to go closer, boy. Yeah, for sure. And I have my father down as one of the greats in guitar too. Eh? But you doing something that I see what you doing, boy. You guys play quattro. I try to imitate what men do on the guitar on the quattro. So I could song like Kaiso and so forth. Well, you see that, right? Trying to imitate all the fellas. It don't ever work out. But I come a little closer and I say, if I could see a hand, if I could just see that right hand, I could figure out what it is you're doing. And no hope, no chance whatsoever. I just had to enjoy it and take it in.
You know, I used to be very, and to this day a little bit, I'll admit, to be very insecure about my guitar playing.
Yeah.
Because, again, the open mic spaces were populated with actual musicians. Like just the other day, I telling Kyle, right? I say, Kyle, I used to hide when I see all with all your guitar parts, you know. I literally used to pull back, you know. You know that meme with Homer Simpson disappearing in the bush? Bro, I used to hold my guitar because I saying them is real musicians. Now what I doing? And that used to further propel me to practice for like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. And I just developed my technique. The breakthrough came when there was a fire festival in Cuba some years ago. I can't remember what year that was exactly.
This is not the fire festival or flop.
No. Cuba actually has something called the fire festival. And Trinidad and Tobago sent a contingent.
Okay.
And it wasn't even the band with the woman yet. It was just still me and Muhammad. And we went on that trip. On that trip, Lord Superior was still alive. Lord Superior was the Calypsonian who went, right?
I see.
Whole trip, even from in the airport and thing, I seen this man dressed to the nines, right? In a pristine leather guitar case and thing. And this man, not even watching me and Muhammad. Real contempt. Real contempt. Like, who are these youngins? I don't know them from nowhere. And his attitude was just real standoffish.
Serious.
Like real. Right? But the night that we performed at the gala, so there's the gala event.
Right.
And we were it's a wild story. We were slated to perform 3 songs.
Right.
This is a non-English speaking audience. We went to a smaller event. It was a poetry reading and we were going to close it with some music. Lord Superior wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
A Cuban guy who could barely talk English called Fernando comes up to us and says that he is an something physicist. That's his day job.
Right.
But he really wants to be a musician.
Thanks.
Fernando says that he will be our friend in Cuba while we're there.
Nice.
So he asked if we performing anywhere again. We said, yeah, we're performing at the gala event. He asked if he could come and perform with us on stage. I said, but how?
Yeah, we're gonna
He
do.
said, nah, I just play guitar too. Something in me, Corie, just say, you know what? Come through, Fernando.
Early.
We show up to the gig. Fernando, right? Shows up. With his hair slicked back.
Artist mode.
Ray-Ban aviators and a black leather jacket. With a Fender Stratocaster.
Oh, that, yeah.
A Strat.
Oh,
a black and white Strat.
Beautiful.
And we go and say, I have not heard Fernando play in my life.
And he in here while you're all playing, he just put a strike up.
No. He heard at the open mic.
All right, got you.
So we on stage and they gave us a corner of the stage. They said, this is the old spot. Do not move from here.
Right.
Like we are stage right in a nice little cubicle and don't move from here.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good thing man like Muhammad don't know how to follow rules. So I strike up Sonyon, which is a ska strum, right?
Right.
And I strum in. I see Muhammad like he can't move. Muhammad then takes the mic off of this stand and goes center stage and tells people to get up. An entire audience of about 1,000 Cubans who can't talk English gets up and is clapping.
Right.
Fernando then goes center stage and starts shredding rock star style.
Serious.
While I am trying to keep this car going. Fernando, what are you doing?
Fernando gone.
But it was epic. After that performance, Lord Superior then comes up to Muhammad and I and speaks to us for the first time on the trip. And he said, you all are phenomenal. He said, both of you all voices blend perfectly. And he said, whatever you doing on that guitar, he said, that is madness. Whatever you doing there, that's you. And I telling you, it working. Like he don't even know what notes I playing, but he said it working. And from there, I got comfortable with it.
Well, for people who don't know, that coming from Lord Superior that's a big endorsement.
Bro.
Supi was many Calypsonians see him as the guitar man.
It's Supi and Relator.
Yeah. Them fellas, when they play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that so now when I get a chance to come to tight spaces, I tell Mom, I said, but I reach late, I vex because I want to blend into the back of the place. I had to come and sit down right opposite you and Ruckus now. And I hear the way you all blend, because you play acoustic that night, Ruckus was playing electric bass, and the way you all blend that is something else, man. I'm watching you now. I want to see if I still didn't figure out nothing.
Really?
I have nothing figured out. There's the tightness of the strumming, though. It really is.
I feel good about that.
Yeah, tight. Well, if Superior tell you that.
Yeah. And I actually revere people like Lord Superior, Relator, but also Kenny Phillips.
Yeah. Kenny.
Also Kenny Phillips, like Quiet as Kept. He have some colors that he has contributed to some of your best songs.
Of course. I was telling him that I wonder, we talk about education and them kind of thing. You all both, you and Muhammad, would it be a parent's dream? One studying engineering, the next one studying law. That's what you want to know when you're getting older, you're trying on them. And both all they come out and went into music. And if you're saying that Born Into Darkness coming out from lack of a reference point, lack of mentors and so on, I feel like we have an opportunity with places like UCT to document what Kenny Phillips did.
Yes.
Show what he played. Teach us.
Because that's a Calypso hand.
It's important. Or Kyle or yourself. Because I was telling him I went to Edna Manley in Jamaica, just doing guitar for a little while in his school. And
Talk the
they
things.
teach you what men did,
Talk the things.
Just tell you, okay, this man, this is his style. This is how he was strumming. This is what Peter Tosh was doing. And you had to learn to do that. That's part of the class.
Talk the things. And not only that, with Edna Manley, you have your practicum, you had to go in the hotel and gig.
Listen, it is, you know who was in class with me in not the practical, in the theory class? Rushmore, who's Cartel producer.
Wow.
And he was there doing music theory like everybody else. And that time he had songs with Cartel already, but sitting through the classes and them kind of thing, So I wonder when we will get there, I wonder when
soon, man. Soon.
Well, you're doing some of the work.
And to tie it all back, right? That is why I'm doing for the record.
This is what I mean. That's what I mean. Because documenting it and making sure that we know. Okay, so you say a ska strum. And anybody who know music know what you mean. But when we say play a kaiso, play a calypso, play a soca, somebody who now learning guitar, they don't even teach our songs as part of how we learn music. It's still Mary Had a Little Lamb Way and them kind of things,
Corie, can I ask you a serious question? Trinidad and Tobago is the birthplace of calypso music.
Right.
True or false?
True.
Birthplace of soca music. True or false?
Yeah.
The most authentic carnival in the world.
Yeah.
Why are we playing recorders in Form 1?
Boy, let me tell you something, yeah?
No. Oh, let me add one more.
Tell me.
We created the steel pan, no?
Somewhat.
Why are we playing recorders in Form 1?
You're going to get people upset in Olu. Let me tell you something. I had Duvon Stewart here, who's Renegade's arranger. He say exactly what you just said. I talked him up to yesterday. He wants to come back to talk about some of them things.
Why are we playing recorders in Form 1?
They have answers.
And in Form 1, right, we don't know about Rudolph Charles. And in Form 1, okay, I don't want to go too much in the who created soca.
We go get it.
But we don't have a reference point formally in education for who Lord Shorty is, for why 1974, 1975 is a pivotal year.
Sure.
Why?
I don't know. We had to change it. Let me start by saying that, right? Us as a group here, we had to start to change that because we care dead and gone, and somebody else coming here asking people the same questions, so we must change it. Because I'll tell you that when he said that, I got numerous calls from people in Pan who, at the time Duvon was here, I might have had 4 or 5 guests before, so they might be seeing the bigger picture. I tell people, listen, it's a body of work. It's not one interview. It's not one conversation. So they disagreed with his take on putting the pan in schools based on how much it would cost parents or the pan too big. And I'm like, listen, the recorder is it's really designed for teaching. I've never gone to a gig and see somebody playing a recorder. Right?
In a Eurocentric classical music context.
Yeah. So our context is less applicable.
So any okay. Let me find the best way I could phrase this. My parents tried to send me to a piano lesson.
Right.
I went to Miss Phillips once. I had my hand trying to do that posture that she was trying to do, and she whacked my hand with a go of a whip, and I never went back.
That was it.
I wanted to punch that old woman in the face. And I couldn't do that as a child.
Yeah, so better you don't go back.
I'm not going back. And while that may be my story,
sure,
there are kids who can't appreciate music as a Trinbagonian child from a recorder in Form 1.
Yeah, it's difficult.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Now, there are kids who come from singing, musical families, parents are musicians, they can adapt easier. But to say that the kids who can't find themselves in music and orient themselves in a love for it because they didn't survive the recorder is to ignore what is indigenous to us.
Yeah.
At least a djembe.
Yeah. Start there.
Because we could teach calypso hand drumming.
Yeah, rhythm.
Right? We could teach dubshan.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
We could use that to now introduce kalinda.
Yeah.
And how kalinda, lavway, call and response, the bedrock for calypso. There's a way that we can craft our music modules to mirror who we are as a society that honors and pays tribute to our history.
That's right. But we had to do it. The will not there because I see boys. My son going Fatima, for instance, right?
Yeah, proud.
Yeah. That's my school too. I don't put that out there. Too much St. Mary's men is come here and you know what I mean. But I watch boys go to school who's play hockey, drag huge bag with 10 hockey stick in it. Men who playing cricket they come out in mother kind of money, they drag out the thing, and I can't understand why the pan too big.
It's not prestigious.
You feel that's where it comes
down to. Still part of. Okay. Do you think that as a society, we've done enough psychological work of admitting that pan men used to be classified as criminals?
You feel it could start from there.
Boer men, stick fighter men, used to be classified as criminals. The fact that we allow it in society does not reverse how we used to classify them psychologically in our mind.
I understand you.
So now, the best we could do is carve out some space in our brain and classify it as culture, as entertainment. But it's still not part of our identity.
I'm with you.
Because if something is part of your identity, you'll carry it.
Of course. Yeah, so teaching my little child the thing that the criminal was doing might be a problem. The education system can't let that pass. Yeah, well.
No, but first we have to admit. And in admitting, we might have to issue some public political apologies to communities. Because this now is an instrument that is part of our identity. But people get locked up and beat for this thing.
Of course.
Families disown men for this thing. Right? There was a period where pan men used to be considered worthless men.
Of course.
Men of no ambition.
Yeah. Listen to David Rudder, that verse in Engine Room. Powerful. You say, same woman who used to open the church door to pray on my head. Now she boasting that my granddaughter beat for a steel band. But it never really, you're right, society never really accepted that. I like what you say, just cast this aside as culture. And culture is one of them things where it's just like sports in schools. You know, you're doing bad in your school, they take you out of this or they take you out of that. They no more, they want to play pan, don't bother with pan if you can't do maths and English on them. As if pan is not maths and English.
How?
Yeah, we had to change it. We had to do the work you're doing and to some extent me opening some of the conversations up. I'm hoping that you're right here. But I can tell you that the resistance is real. I've had no more pushback on any episode than when Devon come and say that. People was upset.
And you know, that was one of my favorite episodes because I have a fascination with steel pan.
Yeah.
I also have a fascination with steel pan players. Right? Every time I see a pan man or a pan woman, there's regret. No, there's regret opening up the cover. Yeah. So Sheriff, myself, and John Gill went to a pan yard at a function there, and I see a man. He just looked like a pan man, but he also have a big silver chain with a big pan pendant on it. Yeah. So I asked him. I say, "Hey, how long you a pan man?" He calculate. He said, "I'm a pan man for 52 years now." He's a pan man longer than I alive.
Yeah.
I said, let me ask you a hard question. I say, you walking through town on a quiet, breezy, easy night, and you hearing pan in the distance. You could tell who practicing? And you say, yeah. You say, yeah. You say, it has some small sides that will surprise you. But for the most part, I know who have a sound.
Right.
I say, why? How you could do that? And this is just a man, he not looking like no intellectual or nothing, eh? He say, you have to remember, a band is an orchestra. You see, it's mathematical. You see, just imagine with me. The extent of your orchestra is 40 pieces. All right? You, as the owner of this band, could say that 20 of your orchestral pieces is cellos.
Right.
So you want a bassy song. Nobody will tell you that you can't do that. And if you want 15 violas after that, and then you want one timpani, I said, okay. He said, that is a sound.
Of course.
He said, well, if you follow that, understand that every steel orchestra, depending on the sound that they want, will assign how many pieces per section.
Well, you answer your own question there.
My brain blew right there.
That might be part of the problem.
So the fact that I am a musician, right, in Trinidad and Tobago, and my way of learning is I have to go in search of it, right? And people have a way of saying, well, if you are a person in this culture and you don't know this, you shouldn't be playing music. And to a point, yeah. But your point would be stronger if that information was part of our cultural way of learning about ourselves, and I choose not to.
Yeah, well, 100%, I agree 100%. You don't have the option. You have to go and seek it out. That's why I tell you I enjoy for the record, because it's only when you read the back of some records, I say, shit, this makes sense. Well, this man is do this as well. I hear him talk about artists in Trinidad being multidimensional with some of the things that rather do with graphics. Who would know that? You can't know what you know, but you answer your own question, because the fact that that man wearing that silver chain with that pan and the way he look, they don't want him come to school to teach nobody nothing. The music teacher must have a look and a way of speaking. You understand? Yeah, and the music teacher, and you know, even in the way you learn guitar, they try to teach you formally, that didn't work out. It's the same thing as me. And I get that getting close to a man who playing and watch his hand, because that's how I learned to play music. I watch my uncle and them play quattro. I watch their hand. I listen and I try that. And I hear something like it, only to find out years later when I create the same song he played. He's trying to figure out, well, what you do? I say, well, I do what I think you do. It's hard.
Same.
Yeah, but can men learn like that too?
There are a couple of musicians in this culture that I am openly envious of. I'm jealous of their ability.
Yeah.
And at the top of my list is Machel Salcedo.
Yeah.
His ability to execute perfect pitch does vex me. I wish he was a shorter man so I could fight him. The fact that he could intonate the exact note that he is playing with the eye closed does vex me.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is something that still, we nonchalant about that.
It's just
we nonchalant about the ability to do that. We nonchalant about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you two other stories before I move on from this. When I went Fatima, Ray Holman was a teacher. And I never know nothing teaching Holman and Pan. I just did not know. He was teaching Spanish, right? Machel Salcedo was with me in A-levels. I went tranquil. I never behaved in Fatima, so they put me out. I went tranquil to do A-levels. And he was in my class. And I never knew he was into music, arts, or anything like that.
Serious?
Because, you're going to do MOB, POB, and whatever the things are, there's no space. There's no structured space for the creativity. Or even if you get into music, most of the people who is musicians is not out of music classes, really, is it? Yeah. But Duvon got glad to hear it's about the recorder. That's one of them. Pet peeves.
Duvon,
Or let me say,
I go fight them with you, boy.
Yeah, we go start a movement. But for the record, it's one of the movements that advancing it a lot in terms of your ability to look and see. Yeah.
I hope
definitely.
So. And to me, going viral is not the point. The indication of success of it so far is many young people have been reaching out and saying, I have this question. Like a young DJ reached out last week and he said, would you consider DJs who remix and do road mixes, would you consider them to be arrangers of the now? I say, not really, because you should have some arrangement sensibilities to do that. But the depth of the role of an arranger was to imagine the landscape of the song, either before production or during production, and score the parts for each voicing of each instrument. And in understanding that, if that is the role of the arranger, why Pelham Goddard is not a fixture that everybody knows?
Yeah.
Like, why Beaver, who's still alive, right? Who arranged Shadow Somebody Go Home. You know that?
Yeah, you have a whole era. He's responsible for an era. So the same thing I say about Kenny. I'm telling Kenny that I say, Kenny, let's shape what music song like for
these guys are still alive.
Of course, and we just Nonchalant about it. I like how you put it. We just nonchalant about it.
Them is my Mozart. You know?
But I wait here on the numbers part. I don't, again, as somebody who's doing this too, I really don't care about the numbers. You know? I care about the person who I sit down with. I understand the impact of the people I sit with. Yes. And I think if you're a fan of Lou, you might listen to Kenny. And in the reverse,
the connection.
I try to curate who comes next. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, all right, but once people's schedules allow, I could release it. Because I also need for people who understand who Kenny is to listen to Lou or to listen to Corie, you know, because we have this disconnect in society where people feel young people and younger people feel old people and nobody is talking to one another.
Let me say this about Kenny. Muhammad knew Kenny before I knew him, right? And he always used to joke every time he see us that Muhammad is the wayward outside child.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I could only play the guitar hard.
Right.
And I guess it was all the anger and frustration in me. Ask anybody who is a OG resident of Freetown. I used to bust a string every other gig. I used to have a pack of strings on standby.
Yeah.
But also was the quality of guitars too. I wasn't always a tailor, man. God bless me.
Yeah.
But even then, every time we played somewhere that Kenny was, he would come up to us afterwards and tell us continue. Continue. And when I look back and I see how crappy we was, and these men who their legacy was already like solidified, was able to see the potential of Freetown, I have nothing but, and I didn't even know the depth of his catalog. I didn't even know who he was or what he was. Was Muhammad who tell me, hey, nah, Kenny is a big deal.
Yeah, but you're right. How you know?
He will always have my respect.
Yeah, it's good. And you have his, You have his. You go hear the episode when it come out. At the time we're recording this, ain't hear the episode yet. So, but nice space. And going back to, because you have a deep sense of appreciation for Kaiso, Calypso, and so on now. And I feel I know plenty Kaiso and Calypso. But when I listening to you, it's like, what is this man saying? I didn't see that. I didn't hear that. I never hear this song. You're digging deep in the crates.
Yeah.
You're not looking at popular music only.
So hear this, right? There's a way where our music is enjoyed. Okay, how to say this? Our music is very contextual. The average Trinbagonian has emotional space for our music when we lime in. Because that's how we've been conditioned to pair ourselves with our music. I had to deliberately, as a musician, create time to listen to Kaiso and Calypso the way I would listen to rap. The way I would sit with a whole Nas album. The way I would listen to Blueprint Volume 1. The way I would listen to Chronic 2001. And not just listen to it as is my culture, but listen to why that snare fall and what is the pocket of them drums. And the more I do that, Corie, is the more to listen. It's the more I realize and our musicians were wildin', bro.
It's crazy.
They were wildin'. And I now understand why Calypso is the mother genre of all new music. Before Calypso, right? Let me just say this for the record. Before Calypso music, what was accepted as music in our popular space was derivatives of Eurocentric classical music. If the birth or the mother of Calypso music is Kalinda, is Lavois, then Calypso is the first world music genre to successfully cross over from being folk music
into popular music
to number one chart top in music. You understand what I'm saying? Every indigenous culture have their folk music. Calypso was the first folk music to be on charts. To make millions,
to
send people on tour, to send men Buckingham Palace. And that's why once you know Calypso and you listen to blues, you realize, okay, there was a legendary blues singer from Louisiana called Lead Belly. Right? He used to play a 12-string guitar. When you study you listen to Lead Belly songs like American Calypso.
Right.
But it's really, I don't know how to say it, Cajun or Cajun music.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the mother of Cajun music is Kalinda. So as the first child of Kalinda to make it to the shiny lights,
Right.
to sell platinum, to become popular music of the world, every other popular genre would have borrowed from the composition structure of Calypso, including blues, including ragtime, including jazz, including swing.
Yeah.
So the idea that Calypso was able to be flexible enough to borrow from all of these genres is also ignoring that we were the mother of all of them too.
I'm with you. Even when they talk about the original reggae strum, not check, they talk about the Trinidadian.
Tate.
Yeah, of course. Just basically, and again, so when we do local versions of, that's why I feel it is all Calypso, is all Kaiso and all but in the initial stages when you form the band, y'all made a choice not to do soca or Calypso, or it was just the expression you had at the time?
We had no resonance with it. We had no connection to it.
Right.
And a lot of it was religiously rooted. I mean, it's devil thing.
Of course.
You end up taking coke.
Yeah.
You forget.
Oh, it's
Okay.
so you had to stay away from it. So what
All
was
right.
the choice now when you would have gone with soca?
So when you, what was it when we went with soca?
when you decided, was it a deliberate choice?
Yes, it was a deliberate choice. We had finished I would say 95% of Born in Darkness album.
Right.
And Muhammad said, now that we have this music out of us, what we think about trying a soca song. And that's where I Am came from.
Yeah. So
Again, with Sheriff.
you went into that trying to make a soca, because when I listen to it, I listen, but this, all of it is Kaiso to me, but this one in particular song, so it was deliberate.
Yes, it was
Nice.
deliberate. So that's our official first
and that is
soca song.
not like when I first met Muhammad, he told me we only do this thing for 4 or 5 years, and I was like, what? It feels like a long time.
But here's here, this is the first indication. I guess we were frightened by it. We had a song called Strictly Business. Right? The strum for that is blues. Right? So we had no band room and thing back in the day. Right?
Yeah, practice home.
No, that my personal practice space was home.
Right.
You know where we band room was? Woodford Square.
I used to go in the square and practice.
And the promenade. Like it was known that we just whole day building our vibes. And one day we were there, it was close to Christmas time, and the vendors were being run from Charlotte Street. The police was locking up people, kicking over tables of apples and things. And Muhammad started writing Strictly Business right there, because it unfolded in
live.
I know saying that, and I know blow my own mind. If that is the way this song was written, we should have done know it was Calypso.
Well, it's true.
Looking at this society.
It's true.
Wow.
Look at that.
So we watching this thing play out and Muhammad singing it. And I struggling to keep up with where he is melodically, because my guitar skills now learning too. So when you hear dun, 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 dun,
Are you trying to find it?
No, but I have a wider blues vocabulary.
Right,
so singing that's blues, the way it is played.
Right.
But that was the first song that we entered and Jack Young Kings with.
Right.
Back in the day. And every night Muhammad performed that. He had about 4 encores. Encore.
Yeah. Encore. People, it's be refreshing in this ways, you know. The sound was different. You all managed to find a way to make, even though you're doing soca now, it's some of the best soca for the years coming from all, you know.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And you only find a way not to. It is still very unique in terms of the sound of it. So I was talking to Muhammad about like feel the love and what it was doing on the road as a mask. All the fellas grew up in the church and the mosque and thing, always on the road like me as I just get a long time in the streets. So when I see what that song do the morning,
Yeah.
I was telling them like Carnival, before the trucks move off, almost every truck in Yuma that morning starts with that. You know, you're still naked in a sense when you now reach there in the morning until everybody reach and you take to drink. It's still shame. Yeah. You're still studying your grandmother telling you what she, boy, listen, but that song just groove people into the day. And then Mass, I was telling them, was one of them that whole year, in the middle of the day, when you're tired and you think that Mass come again. It's real special. But I'd actually saved this to ask you about, because somewhere along your musical journey, the Pinnacle called you. And he said he wants to do a collaboration. I hear you talking about that. And I had some questions around it because that song was Represent, right?
Yes.
So what was the call like at that point in time? You're getting a call from Machel to say we're going to do a collab.
Yeah, so we were part of a intervention program, an art intervention program with some handpicked kids from Success Lab until. And the name of the program was called Art Connect. And there were several artists working with a bunch of kids to explore whether through art they could find themselves. Brian McShine was a visual artist working with them. Freetown Collective was working along with them. And Machel was working along with them. And it was through that program, Machel reached out and he said he's working on the Going for Gold album. And he has a sound that he think we could add a nice vibe to. I'm sure that he didn't really know what we just do.
Right.
Because his legit words was, yeah, I see you could do a kind of Tribe Called Quest kind of.
I see.
What are you saying, my guy?
Is he look?
A Tribe Called Quest? Yeah, but that's what he wanted.
Right.
When he sent the original version of Represent, we I wouldn't say we were intimidated, but all of those inhibitions about that space,
right,
and why religiously we felt as though we were designing a path for ourselves and for our music that didn't represent what we thought he stood for. Because we don't know him. All we know is his public persona.
Sure.
And the myriad of stories, very colorful stories that we hear about him.
Yeah.
So when that call came, musically we were up to the challenge.
Right.
We're just not sure if making this decision is what we want to do spiritually and making this decision with him. So in all fairness, we asked for our audience. We said, hey, before we do anything creatively, we would like to talk to a man to man.
Right.
And we said, yeah, he's fine with that. When he showed up, we lambasted him by. Because remember, we still very spoken word.
Yeah, I guess you know
revolutionaries. And we have been at that point, and I wouldn't say openly because, I mean, it had no Instagram and Facebook was now taken off. But people who knew us knew that we were critics of him and what we felt he stood for.
Right.
So it's only good manners to say what you were saying behind somebody back to their face. So when we had this conversation with him, he sat silently, didn't say a word.
Right.
And when we were done, he said, what if I said all them things you say about me is true? What is the next move?
So no resistance?
No. Say, what if all of those things you're accusing me of are true? You on this side, I on this side. Where's your move? Because I here to be better.
Right.
And if that was our play, that is that's the greatest play in life. Because now he turned that morality back on us.
Of course.
If you're saying you stand for so many principles, you stand for so much morality, when the opportunity to actually do the work come before you, what you'll do?
But what was at the core of the issue with you all with the principal stance against him and his stories?
That for the height of his career and the giant that he is, he seemed to be purely a mascot of enjoyment. And we think our people needed more.
I see.
And I know this might rile people up, right? But I see it differently. And the reason why I felt justified in feeling that way, right, is because I really look up to him in terms of what he is. Right? I had some questions about who he is at that time. But what he was never in any question.
Concrete, yeah.
As in the same way people talk about Michael Jackson, and the same way people talk about Prince, and the same way people talk about Bob Marley, on this rock that is called planet Earth, floating through space, there isn't a bigger soca star than Machel Montano on planet Earth. So if he is at the pinnacle of this thing that we've created, and I think that you're just here to have a good time, then me, who's still in my very revolutionary thought, I'm still in secondary school, fight the power, Karl Marx, capitalism is bad, I have some things to reconcile in myself.
Gotcha.
You know, especially if we are saying that our music is a vehicle to make the situation better.
Oh, with you. So at some point you decided you're going to do it. What was the conversation like?
We decided, both Muhammad and I decided that we will take 3 days to pray and fast.
Okay.
And we did.
So you take it as deeply spiritual?
Yes,
yeah.
Deeply spiritual. And after we took our time to pray and fast, I came back and I said, Muhammad, I think this is an opportunity to say what we need to say in song. And Muhammad said, I was thinking the same thing. Here's what I have.
Okay.
So in Muhammad's praying and fasting, something came to him. And that was the first part. I have love for the whole wide world. With you at the center, you are the master key. If love is by my side, and who could deny me? I keep climbing higher, higher, and higher. That song was in response to Machel throwing the conversation back at us. As in, if we saying we stand for love, and a man is saying, I'm here to challenge that notion. Oh, you love everybody? Or you love everything? Look at me, a sinner. I want to do good.
You could use some love too.
I could use some love too. And this is for the people. Them don't need some love too? You gonna turn this down?
Gotcha. So you decided you're going with it?
We going with it.
But you in particular, your verse was a statement as well, yes?
Yeah, my verses were... The first verse was me saying it on wax. Was me talking directly to Machel. My people, do you listen? Tell me, do you hear? Machel, what is your position for the people? Do you care? I ask him questions.
Sure.
When you tell me that you represent, I don't know. I really want to see some evidence. Because with me and my brethren in Freetown, this is evident. So here's your opportunity. Bring it from your soul. And then all of we hug up and sing, right?
Hot fries, they tell me. You have to put in some hot fries.
That is the hot fries. And then the second verse is me reconciling to the people who would now be looking at us as sellouts.
Of course.
We come in on
so
a
you
mission.
expected that?
Of course. Machel is the most polarizing character that we have in Trinidad and Tobago after Jack One and Wade Mark. So the second verse is, we coming on a mission, me and my brethren, and we don't really care. You'll have problems with it. One love in distribution, and we have some more to share. And we live like this here every day. We do it in love and we don't delay. Love like this, we must relay like we had to share it. In we heart and soul. Hug up again. Oh, hot fries. I love this the answer.
So he know you're singing about him. He care. You doing what you're doing.
I doing what I'm doing.
It will end up being a staple.
Yeah.
I'll have plenty forever music, which I think a lot of artists or bands might use. More envying musicians. People might envy what you all do in the soca space in what is a relatively short space of time. Doing it for a long time, but that really on a phenomenal run where it comes to music. And again, going back to me hearing the albums and constantly thinking. Once electronic, I feel is Kaiso. So I want to on verses. I want to go over one of my favorite verses in Kaiso, where it's saying, "Oh, you put boy, you say you're still stunting with your friends in the imaginary beds." And no Rolex or no Breitlings. Well, the Rolex and the Breitlings and the Benz is coming. I just want to put it out there so the present. No. When you're singing that, it might not be present there.
Yeah.
Or watching the Instagram and watching, the Rolex is there.
It's coming. Yeah, so that was sometimes I wonder if I had everything, could I lose it all and still feel like a king? Because it's so easy to want what you don't have. As soon as you can't have it, I wanted to really use the F word, but when you don't have, you say, damn, this life is hard. But I'm still stunting with my friends and my imaginary Benz. No Rolex and no Breitlings could make me feel like a prince. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Still waiting on my payday. I'm okay. That stuff don't make me anyway.
And I guess it coming from a space then I like, man, just the whole production of it. Like you see a lot of artists or groups do some acoustic version, always a lot of voices making up the music and so on. Deliberate in terms of how you all approach that song.
No, boy, that was real failure.
What do you mean?
That song beat we. And what we had, the production just wasn't working. But what we would do is we would have a skeleton production and at least lay down the guide vocals, at least get the vocal idea down. And so we had the vocal idea, and the only thing that was feeling authentic was the bridge. See, you don't know what I've been going through. And I remember studying it. Because Muhammad had chosen lead writing, Sheriff lead production, and my role was A&R of the album. Okay. So I will sit with the demos and figure out the musical direction.
Right.
And that one beat me. And I came and I said, all right, let's start with the bridge. And then let's do barbershop. Let's do barbershop a cappella. Yeah, because that's where I come from. Seventh-day Adventist, singing in church. Yeah, that's where I come from. Didn't have no instruments when I started singing. It was just me and 5 of my cousins.
Yeah, my guy clap was snapping his
the snap finger. Right, so that's why I started off with the bass and doom. That's church.
That must be why it resonates so much. I was trying to avoid church so much that it come back to haunt me. And one of my favorite songs from all,
Once it in here, you leave.
Can't breaks, right?
Yeah.
But the response to that, well, you all still perform it because when I'm inside spaces, people respond to it.
Of course. Anytime we're in a room of artists or people who, the context of people being in that room is they go in and make some ballsy decisions. That song does resonate.
Yeah. I started to play for my wife every now and again when she said, when this thing gonna start to make money, whole day you're talking to people and think, when this thing, I say, listen to the song. Relaxes and the Benz is coming.
Of course.
I'll be okay. So I had to talk to you about some of the things from for the record now.
Yeah.
One of the more controversial things you do, or the things that I see plenty of people talking about, is that Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
I had an interesting discussion with Kenny about it because he spoke about Mount Rushmore not from the standpoint of artists, but he said the sound of soca had to go down to people like Leston Paul or Pelham or, the people who were producers behind it, which I heard you making a lot of great points on. When you first do your Mount Rushmore, I say, what?
Yeah.
I say let me hear who's your Mount Rushmore again, Nello?
Yeah. Oh, I forget.
I don't remember them offhand either, but I know Nello was there.
Yeah.
Rose was there. Machel would be there as well.
Yeah. And Alison Hines.
Yeah. So when I listened to it, I said, something ain't right here. I need to hear what's the breakdown. The first one I started with was Nelson. And I liked
Let me start with Alison Hines.
You started with Alison?
No, let me start by discussing
right,
Alison Hines, right?
Tell me why.
Because somebody wasted on my whole list because of Alison Hines, right? One, Alison Hines is there because we can't be selfish about the storytelling about how soca has developed and evolved to where it is now.
Feel.
All right? So in looking back at where we are now, we have to give credit to the Bajan invasion. Right? The Bajan invasion introduced a kind of sound and lightness to the enjoyment of soca. Because left up to Trinis, we go gladiator sport the thing, you know.
Well, especially when
Only the
invasion happened.
Only the fittest will survive
That's what it was.
if it left up to Trinis
that's what it
to decide what soca is.
Of course.
So that laid back, sway, groovy, life is all right. To me, when we were coming up, was really, really not started by, but characterized by what the Bajan invasion was doing consistently.
Yeah, it was definitely a shift.
Right. And if you understand how male-dominated music on a whole is,
Right.
and soca on a whole is, Alison Hinds, being the queen of that moment, need recognition.
I with you. But again, your reasoning, it's hard to argue with. I suppose anybody you come up with 4 will have a different 4. I have a completely different 4 too. And when I heard your reasoning on that, I first went back to like Carl and Carol Jacobs. Because they, in a way, that what we know today as groovy soca, them was taking a chance back then to I don't even know if you're strict about what you call a genre and all them kind of thing. Some of the early music that they had.
That's why I wouldn't put them there.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Them is Freetown.
How it's you?
That's why I have so much more respect for Uncle Carl now. Because digging into Carl and Carol Jacobs, in fact, that whole Charlie's Roots and Chandelier movement, bro, we not the first.
No.
So I now take this opportunity, anytime people talk about Freetown music, we come under a family tree. Right? Charlie's Roots, Chandelier, Fireflight. That's what we come under. But straight soca,
you
could not go to a fete in the 90s,
people might remember that,
early 2000s, and not hear follow my ding ding ding. We mumbling the rest of the words because we don't know, but we didn't care.
Yeah, and I like the idea that the face on the Mount Rushmore represents several people, because Edwin Yearwood was right there toe to toe with her.
Yes,
he has some classics.
No. I really wanted to put he, but I had to diversify the thing.
All right, cool. Is that DEI
Right.
kind of thing too? All right, I can live with that.
Yeah, man.
Where you going to next? Nello? Rose?
Let go Nello.
Oh, you want to go Nello last? Nello might be the most controversial of all, because Nello is who you say replaced shortly. Let me go to Machel.
So, all right. The reason why I have Machel there is, again, is it fair to talk about hip-hop in its entirety without talking about Jay-Z?
Yeah.
And for some people, depending on where they are, without talking about Eminem, even if it's a controversial point, they had to be mentioned just because of the vast contribution that they've made to it and how their presence has not left the thing the same.
Of course.
If you take Machel Montano out, right, and all of the things that are connected to him, all of his tentacles. If you remove Machel Montano out, you're going to have a black hole.
Yeah.
So just from a size perspective,
right,
he's occupying so much space in terms of influence, in terms of innovation, in terms of hits, in terms of how he would have sharpened the competition.
Oh, all the competitions.
I wasn't actually talking about the event, but the people,
competitiveness.
His peers.
Yeah, steel sharpens steel.
Even the would we be talking about the amount of work that Shell Shock would have done if it wasn't for Machel?
Yeah, I suppose.
Machel didn't put Shell Shock on, but we know Shell Shock because he was allowed to be more prolific in that chapter of his life.
Right, too.
So just for the amount of people that Jay-Z signed and the amount of collaborations that Jay-Z has done, the amount of albums that have collaborations on that albums, we can't talk about hip-hop without Jay-Z, even though I personally could do without his music.
Yeah.
I can't not talk about him. Same thing with Machel.
Okay, fair. I might leave him off too. Hard to do if I'm on Rushmore. If I had to leave Machel off on Mount Rushmore, I'll put him as Statue of Liberty. He just, or something. He need his own monument in a sense.
I didn't have Calypso Rose. It was somebody else.
Yeah, I don't remember who that fought. Are you sure you didn't have Rose?
No, I didn't have
Or
Rose.
something else you was talking about Rose with regard to?
Yeah.
But let me go to Shorty, because your argument of where Shorty was concerned is about the starting of a genre. Pan people have the same thing with who invented the pan. And I think what you're trying to say at its essence is reducing it to one person or one face is unfortunate to say that he created it.
Yes. Yes. So my reason for leaving him off is because for most people's lists, that would be a foregone conclusion. And that does not advance the conversation.
Okay.
So purely for the sake of advancing the question, for other narratives to come to the front, for questions to be allowed to be asked, here is a perspective that has been put out there but not been shown any light. So on record, Lord Nelson has expressed that he feels left out of that conversation.
Oh, he has?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That he feels left out of that conversation because of what he has brought to the table, right? And the way his contribution is summarized is outside of what's happening here with the arrangers, right? We will talk about Pelham, we'll talk about Lesson, we'll talk about Ed Watson, we'll talk about Clive Bradley. But outside of them guys, he always knew Calypso. He was always steeped in Calypso, but he served in the U.S. Army.
Right.
And when he was out there trying to be an entertainer in the Army as well, he was realizing what disco was doing. And it's the same thing, Beaver would say, that the introduction, the reason for the need to evolve was seeing that Calypso was hard to dance to. Like, white people couldn't dance to it because it was in cut time, right? And unless your foot real agile and you're accustomed to foxtrot and waltz and thing, Calypso, right? So that bubbly movement now that we now introduced with four on the floor and thing is because we see what danceable music doing. And he was able to see how disco could have been a valuable addition to Calypso to give it that bounce. He ain't get no influence from nobody else to come up with that in his head, right? And to know that he is the arranger for the bass line on Me Lover.
Yeah.
So them stories,
right?
So them stories. So the reason why I have him there is to introduce a new sample into the experiment so that you could now pull up Endless Vibrations by Shorty. Look at the time span, the time difference in between that, and We Like It. Endless Vibration album, and We Like It. You could say, all right, this one came before, but the kind of innovation on We Like It as an album from top to bottom in terms of danceability, why would you leave that off?
Yeah. Well, I think he said, the song Foreigner, which to me is a powerful song. I don't know why.
Well, he vent a lot in that song, right?
Of course. Listen, I always listen to that song and I say, but like, you hear any real pain in this recording? Because for him to talk about that, really coming out to the fact that he was attempting to enter the Monarch, enter the competition, and they tell him he's a foreigner, which is crazy to me in hindsight, when you look back at some of these things. But I like that you're making the point and the distinction that these things will happen independent of one another. Yeah. Which is the truth about innovation, no matter what field it's in. When you come up with an idea or something brand new, so much energy has to be out there for you to even come up with that. That's somebody else feeling that same energy somewhere else in the world too. So I like that you included Nelson, and I don't argue nothing against Nelson ever, because to me he's easily one of the greatest. And but the same thing with Machel's 5 decades doing this thing now at a high level. since he started. You know, people saying that when they see Machel in 1986 singing Too Young to Soca, they didn't know he's a star. Like you say with Michael Jackson. And Nelson is how much decades now? His man still zipping down, jumper and thing up to today.
Yeah.
So it's hard to deny.
But the attempt was never to bring any erasure.
I understand.
What Mr. Garfield Blackman brought.
Of course. I think what you were doing is adding.
I was adding.
Yeah.
So you choose that name. This is the name I would pick.
Yeah.
It's like when we doing fantasy football. You have your player.
That's right.
Right? And I saying, as a Tobagonian, Nello is my player.
Yeah. Why not? And that's why I like the discussion, because even in the discussion, and just to bring it full circle, it's a part of the educated.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing something to the table that maybe most people would not, even a youth. A man who's 20 years old would just say, well, Shorty create Calypso, Soca. So he had to be there.
Yeah.
And you say he can't name too much, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And so that was to reveal that in order for us to be better Trinbagonians, we have to be able to stand by what we know. If you're saying Shorty is yours, all right, know why.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Yeah. But Super Blue was one on your list as well. Why?
Having Super Blue on the list allows the connection between soca, zest, and steam to be drawn.
So
there is the narrative that Super Blue is the forefather of power soca.
Right.
All right? That call and response, that love way, put your hand in the air, are you ready to go? No. When you listen to Super Blue's performances, right, and there are quite a few from that time, when he's doing the crowd interactions on the band break, I promise you, there's nothing different between that and what Young Brother came up doing.
All right.
That banter, that space for banter
of
over
course.
the break,
that's
Blue Boy. So if now soca has innovated and sophisticated itself so that it could now spit out a Lady Lava, spit out a Young Brother, spit out Pappy. He's the father of that. So I'm seeing what's coming next, and drawing the linkage back to soca.
I see you.
And who would have been responsible for that innovation?
Of course. Now, we probably not time, but one of the things I want to get into it with, as you say that, is the distinction of it. But maybe we talk about it a little bit, because the distinction I hear say is unfortunate, based on a melody record you were referencing, that we said Calypso, then soca, then power soca, then groovy soca, and we kept doing that over the years. I would love to see, just personally, I just find we need to get back to calling all of it Calypso or Calypso. Even when you all were in a movement that was called New Calypso at the time. And when I hear it, I was like, why? Why is it New Calypso? It felt like if you're making something else old Calypso. When I thinking that, when I listen to some of y'all songs and some of what Brigo was doing, it's so similar in terms of the energy and the vibe of the music. Nello too, because a lot of these songs, a strict genre man would have said Nelson wasn't singing. Plenty. It was funk, plenty. It was disco, reggae. He has some songs.
That's right.
But to me, is all okay. So Super Blue, I think I would probably have on a list for some of the same reasons. You really changed it. But the one that I don't hear people saying a lot, and I look at Mount Rushmore as if we were already 2,000 years old as a genre, right? I want to look back at the Mount Rushmore. And I don't think you could leave Bunji off because of what he does with the music. He's changing, and we getting to see it live. We could look back at Shorty and them and say, and Nelson, and say how they revolutionized it. Or even Rose, who sing a lot about women and making sure that she stamp it for women coming after her. Bunji doing some things that is some big risks he taking with music. He's sticking to what he believes in terms of where he feel music should be, both in terms of the tempo, the message, all them different types of things. Because Bunji has you all say, don't sing about rum, though. But Bunji has some very, very principled ways of putting music out.
That's
you
right.
mightn't hear him talk about certain things say certain things. I feel like if I keep looking for people to say, okay, Bunji should be part of that Mount Rushmore. How do you feel about him being up there?
Absolutely. One of the things that makes Bunji distinct in his presence is that he don't need none of this. could give he a bottle and a spoon and you'll get a full song.
You'll get a show.
You give him 2 sticks and a bucket.
Right.
And you'll get a full show.
Mm-hmm.
His artistry is close to that raw primordial energy that is Calypso.
Mm-hmm.
That in the most dire of circumstances, you'll get a entire a cappella from Bunji for 10 minutes and not feel any less entertained.
Yeah. And heavily rooted in Calypso because to me is extempo. You know?
Yeah.
And again, just that parallel for me is important because when I hear, you hear so many times over the years, some of our greatest icons talk a lot about breaking out into the international market or going global with the music. It's not something I've ever heard Bunji discuss. I've never heard y'all discuss that as a band either. But when you say y'all start off in England, I believe that if we stay true to who we are, both in terms of the culture and the music and our own beliefs, whether they come from the church, they come from the mosque, they come from wherever you grew up in your community or whatever. I feel if we stick to our own beliefs and just tell our own stories, the world, they don't have a choice. They go come to us. We don't have to go to them.
Yeah.
And that's why I would see in Jamaica a lot. Men just telling their own story. Men talking about what happened on the block.
Yes.
As you all would have done in tongue.
Yeah, that is who Bunji has always been for me. He has been that window to the ground.
Yeah.
That don't care about how many all-inclusive tickets sell. I go tell you about the corn Superman outside.
Of course, that's the story. So again, just drawing that parallel to you all and to you in terms of what you're doing in the music space. Critical, because you're pushing it. You're staying principled in what you're doing. And just as with the tight spaces or any other event you're doing, your audience continuing to find you no matter where you are. It starts off so. The audience find you. I hear your story about good swimmer in Guyana. I was like, what?
Yeah. Like none of our big successes came from strategic moves.
Yeah.
It has always been real spontaneous creation that felt good in the belly.
Got you. Well, Conrad, ready to pull you out, but last question. While you're continuing in the vein you're going in to make music for the festival?
For now, yes. Yes. and wider music as well. We have an album that's on the way. Our release date is Emancipation Day, August 1st. And the sound of it, again, is going to be reminiscent of Born in Darkness. Not genre-wise, but the adventure of it.
I understand. So we up now is album or song? I see you promoting that.
A song that is from the album. It's one of the singles from the album featuring College Boy Jesse and Pretty. And I was just saying to them guys on the video shoot, that the community with them, the fellowship to them just feels so good. And to imagine that this is how some of the Calypsonians might have been back in the day.
I'm glad you're saying that, Yeah. I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I have the tendency to like to reminisce a lot. All of us. You as a historian, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you don't realize that we creating what people go talk about in some years to come. You're definitely doing it.
And the one thing I like about this era, that the previous era was the previous era. But so much of what was recorded, archived, and remembered was at the height of war.
Destroyed.
We remember what happened in the tent, in the competition, where men were not permitted to be friends. But that's what the Gazette reported on.
Of course.
That is what the competition reported as who was the winner, who didn't place. And we didn't have Instagram back then or any Lifetime articles or editorials to really let us know who was friends and who was liming together. You had to rely on personal stories, like Kenny Ariel stories,
100%.
right? But now we can show that outside of Carnival and who vying for airplay, Like these fellas is really friends. They just line together.
Yeah, that's beautiful to see.
They just come together even when they're not making music.
Yeah, yeah. The documenting, that's what Affordable Imports help them with. You see, the documenting is having it, and I tell you, they are the greatest set in the whole thing. Anybody who, I see us big up some storytellers, KG, Tamika Costello. I'm so happy that they're doing what they're doing.
Yes.
But nobody looking as good as you. I don't know the hell you'd make that set work and them things.
Serious way?
What? All them instrument behind you playing that saxophone and all them things.
Yeah, man.
All right, yeah, that's good time to do that whole next conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll love to come again to talk about
Kyle?
some more things.
You're the first person who come here that Kyle know.
Really? And okay. Let me use this. Let me use this as a plug, right? Big up Kyle from Tobago. And one of the things that I really want to pursue is to put some music into this space that tells a story about Tobago.
Well, we have a segue into the next episode.
The reality of Tobago needs some unpacking.
All right, good. Let me do that now.
Yeah.
Because one of my questions on my list here is to ask you about cessation. I want to hear your thoughts on that, but we go leave it there until
There's a whole episode by itself.
There's a whole episode here. I really want to hear how you feel about it and what's your thoughts as a wee boy.
Don't worry, Kyle. I go represent. We good.
Kyle go try to come on too. Thanks a million, brother. This was great. This was real.
This was wonderful.
Yeah, boy, this was nice. Thanks a million.
Yeah, man.